Now, Danny, being a cybersecurity expert yourself, like, I'd definitely like to hear more. And if you can share with our viewers, what are some of the major challenges that cybersecurity experts such as yourself face in safeguarding not just individuals, obviously, and organizations? And what are some of the suggestions or advice you would have for other, or, your fellows or your peers in the cybersecurity industry?
Excellent question. And it ties into some of what I might have touched on your last question.
Yeah,
So let's talk about risk in general. And let's talk about understanding risk just before I get to the question. Okay.
sure.
We talk about understanding risk and you talk about, well, let's analyze risk. And we need to make people aware of a risk before I can start training you on cybersecurity. Now, if I talk to anyone who analyzes risk for a living, case in point, somebody who works in insurance, that's their job, is analyzing risk. Okay.
Yeah.
You talk to anyone who analyzes risk for a living and you ask them, how do you analyze risk? They'll tell you, you look at the impact and you look at the probability. And so, so when we talk about risk for what you and I are talking about, most people I find in society, most businesses do understand the impacts associated with cybercrime risk or cyber risk, right? We've seen the news reports, we see the numbers, a lot of numbers, millions here, billions here, trillions here, it's gonna cost this much, it's gonna cost that much. We get it, right? And I find that because we get that the impacts are big, I find that if you pull someone aside, anybody, whether they're some sort of business leader, whether they're a citizen of any kind, you pull them aside, you say, hey, cybercrime, you know this, it's serious? They'll say, yeah, man, impacts, a lot of money, very serious stuff. And because we think we get that, we think we understand the risks. The problem is where we break down is we don't get the probability or we don't truly respect the probability. So yeah, we get it's expensive. We just think it's somebody else's problem. We don't believe in the probability that this is going to be our problem or that this is going to be the problem for our organization. So even after all these stories and even after all these years, the number one thing that I hear, the number one thing that I need to fight against, the most challenging part of what I do is when somebody says to me, it's not going to come after me. Nobody wants what I have. And I hear that from business leaders. I hear that from individuals. And that's why I'm always saying, yes, you absolutely do have something that is valuable to cyber criminals. That's probably, and that was actually ties back to the very first question you asked me, but that is probably one of the most important things that I educate people on is you absolutely have something of value to cyber criminals. And then I speak to that, and I speak to letting people know what that is. Because a lot of times people will only accumulate it to, hey, it's not like I have millions of dollars in the bank or billions of dollars in the bank. Why would they want me? Doesn't matter, right? And so what I tell people is the way that I work around that is I really work on addressing that first, improving that point first, and giving different stats that speak to that and say, okay, this organization had no money. Schools as an example, high schools, elementary schools, cyber criminals are targeting them. Now, if we're talking about publicly funded elementary schools and high schools, they have no money, they have no budget. Yeah. It doesn't matter to the criminal. And you need to let people know that everyone is a target, because if they truly don't believe they're a target, then none of your lesson is really going to matter. You got to get them on side first. And that's my biggest challenge, and that's really how I work with it is I work by tackling that first, getting them to believe it.
Okay, amazing. So from what you're saying, Danny, the biggest challenge is simply individuals and organizations saying, hey, it could never happen to me.
That's it.
Right.
And not when they say it could never happen to me, it's not so much out of I'm too well protected. It's more so, why would anyone want to target me? I've got nothing anyone wants. I hear that time and time again. And I hear people say, but I'm broke, or I got nothing but debt, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.